Yo, 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 what's good, YouTube? Stormy B Man, and I am back. Welcome to another edition of Kung Fu Film Focus, where today we are bringing you a cult classic from 1971, and we're calling it The One-Armed Boxer. That's right, Jimmy Wong Yu, once again. The One-Armed Boxer. This guy has been a staple in martial art films from the mid-60s on up until yesterday. Jimmy Wong Yu has made a huge impression on the Kung Fu film, and we are proud to talk about one of his films that helped carry the genre into something different, where the One-Armed Boxer shows and features a Kung Fu master who is handicapped. Okay? Nothing had been done like that before in Hong Kong martial art films, although you did have something in Japanese samurai films where you had Zatoichi, the blind swordsman. So here we are to talk about this classic here. I want to say salute to everybody that's out there listening, people who will catch this on replay. This is a classic film that before the Bruce Lee craze happened, this film was on the scene. And it is also known as the Chinese professionals. Okay? And in some areas, there are some other names, French names that I can't pronounce. But in Hong Kong, it was either known as the Chinese professionals and or the One-Armed Boxer. Jimmy Wong Yu was able to produce this film with Golden Harvest Studios, the same studio that put out the Bruce Lee films. And he was able to direct the film himself, and also he was the action director for the film. Now, the interesting part about him being able to direct this film, he wanted, when he was with the Shaw Brothers Studios, to produce and direct his own films with Shaw Brothers. They did not. Run Shaw ran a tight ship, and he had his list of directors that he was more than confident in their capability with their film productions. And though Jimmy had come on strong as a leading man in Shaw Brothers Productions, they didn't have that type of confidence in him. They felt like the veterans of the studio knew better. So Jimmy worked his way out of a Shaw Brothers contract. Mind you, at this time, during that era, Run Shaw signed his people with his studio up to 7-year contracts as actors and actresses. And they had very little say-so in scripts, as well as how many productions they would be in annually. If you were one of their more featured stars, you might get 3 to 4 productions a year. If you were just a contracted star, you might find yourself in every other production that's being put out. So as you could see, with the way that Run ran Shaw Brothers, Jimmy was looking for something a little more fruitful for himself and where he could get recognition for his creative process. So Raymond Chow, who headed up Golden Harvest Studios, gave him that opportunity when he joined up with their studio in 1970. So one of his first directorial efforts was The One-Armed Boxer. Also, like I said, in Hong Kong, known under the Mandarin and Cantonese title of Du Bei Quan Wong. So this is what it was. Jimmy Wong Yu, again, coming up with this idea of a martial arts master, actually the lead of a school, where he was like the chief student of the school, found himself in countless frays with a former school, another school, I should say, as well as some baddies about town, and always getting into fights. His teacher would punish him harshly and set example of him for the rest of the students. And then one day they came across some guys who were definitely the baddies of the town, and they ran racketeering and all other sorts of, dirty, underhanded businesses in the town. And they had a martial arts school as well. When Jimmy Wong Yu's character came across this guy, he would defend the innocent and help the weak with his martial prowess, often engaging his fellow students in matches against these bad guys. Until one day, this clan decided to bring in some muscle. And what they did was they brought in Japanese fighters from Japan. And with bringing in these Japanese fighters, they decided that they would take care of business first by eliminating Jimmy's school. These Japanese fighters also brought in other fighters, such as some Tibetan lamas, which are like Tibetan monks, some yoga Indonesian fighters, some Thai kickboxers, and some judo experts. All of these men ganged up with the town's bad guys to take down Jimmy's school. One thing about the one-armed boxer is this. It put on screen for the first time the assortment of fighters that would become kind of the staple of martial art films as martial art movies went forward. And these guys, they would display these styles. And like I said, it was the first time. It was the first time on screen that the martial arts were being displayed in this way. So that's why Jimmy Wong Yu needs to get the credit that he really deserves, because he had these ideas. The martial art tournament films that came out of his films, which was actually the sequel to this film, The Master of the Flying Guillotine, which we will cover in a future show, it introduced audiences to the tournament film for the very first time. Okay? And the way Jimmy did it was he had all types of outlandish, not just styles, but the characters were very memorable. Even in this film, the lead Japanese, played by Long Fei, looks like some type of a hybrid of a beatnik and a vampire, which is a really crazy way to describe his character. But that's exactly what he was. Long Fei appeared in a number of films with Jimmy Wong Yu, and the two of them worked together in several different productions. Okay? And Long Fei was, I guess, he must have been on a very good plane and relationship with Jimmy, because his appearances in Jimmy's films usually meant he was a bad guy. Okay? And he was always convincing as a bad guy, Long Fei. And his role in this particular film found him just roaming around, grunting and everything, and he had two front teeth missing, so he had all the rest of the teeth but the ones in the front, and he looked like Dracula or something. But that was done by design, because they wanted him to have that villainous appearance, you know. And this is how they presented it to audiences back in 1971. So yeah, you know, Lung Fei, the characters that he played in Jimmy's films usually was you know, a real baddie. He always had a thick mustache, which was associated with being a bad guy, and that was something that was kind of like his trademark. So he presented himself as such. I want to take a moment and acknowledge everybody that's in the chat. We got Mark Wunderlich out there. He says, Utah in the house. Salute, Stormy B-Man, my brother. Thank you, sir. The Black Banter says, get the organic popcorn and alkaline water. We have another classic Kung Fu review from Stormy B-Man. I respect, brother. Yes, sir. Thank you, man. Mama Waldy Black says, Chinese professionals. Absolutely. This film was known in certain parts of this country as the Chinese professionals. And what professionals they were. These guys were a host of characters as characters. Yes. Underground Asylum is out there. He says, Stormy B-Man, salute. Salute to you. Get This Smoke says, when one-armed boxer knocked the flying guillotine master through the roof and into a coffin, movie magic was made. Yes, sir, man. I agree. The Jab Jamboree, Ack Reacher is out there. He says, that's Stormy B-Man. Salute, bro. Love this talk. Glad to see you, Ack. You surprised me on the last joint when you said, man, you talking Kung Fu too? I thought you knew that, man. There's a whole bunch of these reviews I've done already, Ack. So I'm glad that you sticking around, coming around for some of the, some more on top, you know. And he also says, Stormy B-Man, I definitely watched the One-Armed Boxer movie a few months back. Yeah, man, it's a classic, man. This film is a classic. There are so many aspects of what this film brought to martial art films. You know, what it brought to the Kung Fu movie in general. I'm just saying it as I'm going over this, that Jimmy Wong Yu gave so much to the industry, man, with what he was able to do, how he was able to create, you know, he did a wonderful job of presenting to modern audiences what the Kung Fu film is. In this film, the one-armed boxer loses an arm after the Japanese come to his school and his arm is chopped off. I was going to show the clip that shows that, but no, I'm saving that. You guys got to go watch this movie for yourself. But it's an amazing thing where his arm literally gets chopped off with a karate chop from the Japanese, played by Lung Fei. Man, hey, this is a classic. There are a number of familiar faces in this film, but what I was, you know, amazed at when I was researching this film to present to you guys, I didn't know that Jimmy Wong Yu did the action direction for this film, which shows why it's a little bit choppy, because he wasn't a real martial artist, but he was an action guy and he was an athlete. They said that he had Olympic-like athleticism. So he could do things, but he just didn't want to honor traditional martial art and classic style. He wanted his own style to be crude, street fighting like. I guess you could actually say he was like the Chinese street fighter, because, you know, Sonny Chiba, who made his name in action films in Japan in the late 60s and early 70s and founded the character, the Street Fighter, and made numerous films with that character, Terry Seguri. Jimmy Wong Yu's Kung Fu karate films are kind of on par with Sonny Chiba. Although Sonny Chiba was a real martial artist and was a student of Oyama Mas, the famous Japanese Korean martial arts expert who numerous films have been documented and made about. So Jimmy Wong Yu, he walked to his own beat, man, and he was entertaining with it. As he moved around the screen with one arm basically tied down under his garments, you know, with his only his like right hand, no, his left hand made available. And imagine that he's doing everything with his left because his right hand is, you know, he was a right-handed person. So it's like, excuse me, I got a fly flying around me. What the hell? But he was very athletic. And like I said, he could do tumbles and flips and things like that with his arm bound. So to see Jimmy Wong Yu create this character for the first time, audiences were taken aback. The special effects are now a little crude, but back in that day when they were doing things, they were using wire and trampoline for high leaps and tumbles and things like that. They did this with precision, and Jimmy Wong Yu got the best out of it. So it was amazing at that time, had people mesmerized with the type of action that he brought through. Another thing about his character, who was left for dead after getting his arm chopped off, he had a lady friend in the film who was kind of like his, if you want to call it a love interest. She was there, but I forget the actress's name, but she wasn't one of the popular Hong Kong actresses. She was one of the ones that they got on the cheap for this particular film, because the Golden Harvest actresses like Maria Yi and Nora Mao and Angela Mao and even Polly Kwang Shang Ling Feng, those actresses, they commanded a little bit of a better salary. And forgive me if I forget this actress's name, but she nursed him back to health after he got injured, you know. And so what he decided to do was to take his arm that was good and ruin the nerves in the arm so he could not feel pain or whatever. And there's a very gruesome scene in the film where he's sticking his arm into some hot coals to do this, to burn himself to the degree where he loses all the feeling in that arm. And once he does that, that makes that arm super tough. Once he heals it in herbs and things like that. So for the rest of the film, when you see him, his left arm, it's all dark and charred, you know, from him doing that. Of course, this is movie magic again. This was not something that you should try in real life, of course. But as little guys back in the cinema, back in 1970, 72, watching these films, we thought that was cool, you know. It's like, hey, superheroes, you know, in kung fu films. And that's what we took from it. So, yeah, being able to see him do that, and then he was up and about and ready to go after the bad guys after he was on the mend. I mentioned earlier that, you know, when his school took on the bad guys, you know, Jimmy Wong Yu's character, he was the lead student, and he kind of was the one that forged into the action and the fights. And his teacher, which you could see just behind his right shoulder here with the hat on, the kind of Russian type hat, you know, his teacher admired the qualities that was in his student, but he knew his student was a bit rambunctious. That's why he took, you know, punishment on him to the extreme, because being chopped off, which was actually in this scene that you see this still shot from. Let's go back to the chat for a moment. We got Walter Wilder is out there. It says, "What up, Brother Storm? In honor of Jimmy Wong Yu, Xinquan, March 18th, 1943. He says he was a swimming champion of Hong Kong. Yes, sir, he was. The Jab Jamboree says, you liked Bolo? Stay on point there, Act Reacher, brother. We talking about Jimmy Wong, you and the one-arm boxer right now. Why you guys like to do that, man? We be talking about one thing, and here you come trying to, let me slip this piece of paper in there and see if I can sidetrack it. Get out of here. D. Hodges is out there and says, what up, Stormy in chat? LDBC, salute, family. Yep. Walter Wilder says, Jimmy was considered the Chinese Clint Eastwood. Yeah, I guess I've heard that term, but I think my assessment just a moment ago of what I said, that he and Sonny Chiba were very close in what they brought to the screen cinematically, both for Japanese and Chinese audiences. They were very close with that. And I know when trying to compare him to someone from the Western film world, Clint Eastwood may come to mind, but I would have to think about that for a moment because, no, Ack, it's all good, man. I take moments like that to try to say something funny, man, but you good, bro. You good. I'm always ribbing people like that. But yeah, you need to go and check out my archive, man, because I got plenty of these films. I just looked back today as I was setting this up and saw that I had, what film was that I had done? One of my films that I had done. Forgive me, I can't remember the title right now, but almost 2,600 views on that particular Kung Fu Film Focus. So there are people out here watching these joints, man, and I appreciate that. I'm not trying to be an expert, but what I am trying to do is be a person who lived through this genre and embraced it like, you know, a kid in a candy store, man. These films were excellent to me at the time. And just like people now are able to enjoy films like the comic book movies, the Batmans and stuff like that that comes out today, this was that for us back then, because they weren't making Batman films and stuff back then. But when we saw Kung Fu films, dude, these were like superheroes. The guys could leap 30 feet in the air and jump off of buildings and over walls and rooftops and stuff. These guys were bad. One man taking on like 30 dudes and stuff like that with swords and everything. So that's what this was. And then you look right here in this particular photo where Jimmy Wang Yu he's about to face off against some of the Japanese fighters, right? But look at all the guys that's behind him. Those are his fellow brothers from his school, but he's getting ready to face the Japanese by himself. He was rough, man. And he was very popular at that time because he had that mantra that he carried, a badass, you know, bucking the system and stuff like that. His very first film was Tiger Boy with Shaw Brothers. And in that film, he was like a rebel without a cause, kind of like a James Dean kind of character there. And all of his films, he basically carried that type of disposition in his character play. He didn't have many levels of depth to his character, and usually would walk away at the end of the films, you know, like walking off like a badass into the sunset and stuff like that. That was his style, and that was his trademark. But Jimmy Wang Yu, he understood what the audiences would like, especially when he was introducing something new. And The One-Armed Boxer was a film that definitely introduced something new to the audiences, because we hadn't seen on screen before this type of film where you would have so many different characters, you know, with different styles of martial arts. So that's what he did, and that's what he brought. And audiences ate that up, man. The Thai boxers with the traditional Thai garment on, no shoes on their feet, and their knuckles were very bruised and bronzed, as well as their feet were bruised and bronzed. You know, and you could see from their training that when they hit or kick something, bricks or walls, it crumbled under their strength because they were so formidable. And Also, you had Lung Face character who is on the lower bottom left here on this poster here. He was a karate expert that could, like, if you were standing, if it was a wall between you and he could hit the wall and you could feel his power through the wall, which of course it was phony, but that was the extent of his, his chi, so that's how they related on film. So there's a scene in the film where Jimmy Wong Yu is standing on the other side of a rock that separates them, and instead of trying to run around the rock to get at Jimmy, he hits the rock which Jimmy was leaning up against to, and he feels the chi through the rock. He's like, oh, fake and phony stuff, but entertaining for that time. And it's also supposed to convey what a karate man could do, how he could channel that chi, So that's what this was about. And it was very entertaining at that time. Walter Wilder says Bolo was Mr. Hong Kong in 1971. Yeah, and he supposedly swam across the seas as a refugee to get to Hong Kong, man. A lot of people had endured hardships and everything during that time when they were trying to immigrate to other places with better conditions and a better opportunity at life for themselves. And definitely Bolo was one of those who had done that. Man, I got this fly in here bothering me, man. You guys gonna have to forgive me if I take my fly swatter and go after this dude, because I hate flies. My wife came in a little while ago. She must have left the door open and he come in, so I'm gonna get him. So let's see. Walter Wilder says, I love Shinichi Satochiba and the Japan Action Club he founded along with Karada, who has his KAC, Karate Action Club. Yes, sir. And Etsuko Shiomi. She was their version of Angela Mao. And I loved her, man. She was wonderful. She was beautiful. And she could fight. Sister Street Fighter. She made a career of films playing that. But we will be covering their films in the future too. This is not just Hong Kong films. This is martial art films, period. And as a treat for you brothers and sisters out there, I will be moving into the modern films as well. But there are so many of these older classics that I'm just trying to cover enough of them to let people know that this is worth checking out. Okay? It's not about excluding anything, but we got a long way to go, and we're taking it step by step. It's one of the reasons why I said I didn't want to just jump into Shaw Brothers films only, even though I've done a few of them now. But there are so many of these independent joints. Although One Armed Boxer is not an independent film, it's definitely a film that was produced by another major studio, which was right under Shaw Brothers, Golden Harvest, ran by Raymond Chow, who used to work with Run Run Shaw as his right-hand man until Miss Mona Fong stepped in between, who became Run Run's mistress and also her new right-hand person. So you can't step in the way of love, so Raymond had to go and do his own thing, which we'll touch on those little tidbits from time to time. Everything is allegedly, of course, right? Unless you guys know the real deal and can just say, hey, Stormy, you're right on point. So, yeah, Dark Truth has joined us. He says, what's up, Stormy B, man? What's up with you, man? And Walter Wilder says, Jimmy in 2014 attended the funeral of 14K Triads and was rumored to be a badass gangster off camera. Allegedly. And he says, love her. Fine. Yeah. Etsuko Shiomi. Yeah. And even today, she still looks wonderful, man. Wonderful. But when she was younger, oh my goodness. Etsuko. Woo. And there are photos of her out there where she was always dressed in nice clothing and stuff and even covered up. Never mind. I ain't going. Stormy B, man, ain't no perv. But anyway, so back to One Armed Boxer. Listen, man, this film right here, you heard me say something a moment ago about the guys, the Tibetan monks, okay? Those dudes that appeared in this film, the Tibetan monks, they were instrumental in this film because when Jimmy Wong Yu's character defeated these guys, we find out when the One-Armed Boxer 2 comes out, also known as Master of the Flying Guillotine, okay? These guys sent a notice to their master, who is the villain in Master of the Flying Guillotine. So if you guys didn't know that Master of the Flying Guillotine is part 2 to the One-Armed Boxer, boom, mic drop. There it goes. Master of the Flying Guillotine is part 2 to the One-Armed Boxer, and these two Tibetan monks were students of the blind man who had the guillotine in the Flying Guillotine. As the film opens and he's reading the note that the pigeon brought to him from his two students, Chao Fu and Chao Shang, that's these two guys right here. One had the ability, he had the death finger touch. He could poke you with his two fingers, and you see the guy right there on the right. And then the other one had that it's what they call it, the iron qigong style, where he could hold his breath and his body would inflate and get big, and he was invulnerable. You punch him and kick him or whatever, you wouldn't hurt him. So these two guys in the third act of the film, they take on Jimmy Wong Yu and he defeats them, but little did we know that they had sent message to their master. In the event that this guy that we're going to take out, defeats us, you have to come and avenge us. And the master came out in the part 2. So great thinking ahead by Jimmy Wong Yu, man. Again, like I said, introducing these characters and being able to tell a story to the degree that if the film is successful, you could leave avenues open for there to be a follow-up, a part 2. Yes, sir. So Walter Wilder says, hey, Brother Storm, don't forget about the badass Yukari Oshima, who worked very hard in independent films. Oh, yeah, we'll get to her down the line. We will. Chi-Town's Finest is out there. He says, damn, Stormy, I never knew it was a sequel to this. Good stuff. That's right, man. And I'll tell you, there's another film that kind of has a little bit of link to this. And I'll let you guys know about that when I do the Master of the Flying Guillotine. Because now that I've done the One-Armed Boxer, I got to do the follow-up to it, right? So that's inevitable. So, yeah. But, man, what a cast of characters that Jimmy Wong Yu brought out for this particular film, man. You had the yoga man who could dance around on his hands, and like he's doing a handstand and move around. And late in the film, when Jimmy is fighting that guy and he gets on his hands and start walking on his hands like this, Jimmy gets on his one arm on his finger and he's running around on his finger. Badass dude, man. I'm telling you, these films are something else. They are a whole bunch of fun when you allow yourself to open yourself up to something from another culture. And remember, back in the 70s, man, and this was 1971. So this film was a part of movies that were brought over here for the very first time. American audiences hadn't seen anything like this. So if you weren't tickled to death by the production values and the cheeky special effects and the dubbed over voices and everything, which were hilarious in their translations from what was being said in Mandarin and Cantonese to English, it was like something that could take you off on an escape, because it was a first time experience. And a lot of the stuff that was said did translate, but what was even more interesting was that how they made it Western with the dub overs, huh? Sometimes you would hear the guy say, "God damn you, you bastard," and stuff like that. And it's like, when you hear it, in the dub track, it's hilarious. But in the translated track where they use subtitles, it's not the same. because Mandarin and Cantonese languages are more flowing and more they're what's the word I'm looking for? It's a more dignified way of speaking. Okay, artistic speaking. So as we say something, in a movie we say, Mandarin translation, it may say, "My lotus flower, you bloom like the summer," or something like that. It's like, so it doesn't translate the same in English, but they find a way to make it pair with what they want to transition to, a new audience or a new listening audience of a different language background. So that's something to keep in mind as well. These films are wonderful, though. As we get back to the film, Jimmy Wong Yu's character goes after the bad guys in the third act, and he finds a way to separate them so he can take them all on one by one, or in the case of the Tibetan monks, he's or they refer to him in the film as the Tibetan lamas. This, like, again, translation. But he finds a way to separate these guys. Okay? And he defeats them. And as the film goes forward, Long Fei's character is definitely taken to task. He is the most crude out of all of the guys. So he's kind of like I'm trying to figure out how to say it. They save him for the end of the film, but he is known to be just very he's like crude, huh? And he's like vicious. His karate style is like wild, reckless, abandoning at all junctures, do anything. There's a scene early in the film where they're talking to one of the Japanese and the bad guys have met, and they're plotting a plan to go to Jimmy's school. And one of Jimmy's fellow students is sitting in the tea house where they're meeting. Now, every time there's a tea house in the martial arts film, there's a fight, right? So guess what? They see him sitting over there, and the bad guy says to Lung Fei, "Picture it here. Hey, there's one of them right now. Let's go over here." And he goes over and said, "Hey, you bastard, funny meeting you here." He was like, "Oh, you don't want to talk to me?" He was like, you're gonna disrespect me right here?" He was like, "Get on your knees and apologize." And dude was like, "Man, F you, So he was like, "You and you Japanese friends." Long Fei's character, this is what I said about him being so crazy and maniacal in this film. He looks at old boy and he's like, he starts to go crazy, and they beating him up and stuff. It's like, this dude is like crazy, man. Looking like a vampire, got strength like some kind of alien type being. But this is to hype up how formidable he was gonna be, when they fight him at the end. And another thing about Jimmy Wong Yu's films is that Jimmy Wong Yu, the martial arts take a back seat to the special effects and the action, the stuff that takes place, the props that get broken up and this and that. So he had an idea as an actor and budding director of what the audiences would take to. That's why his films are special. He's able to exhibit things that some of the other directors and everything just kind of like missed. And Jimmy brought that element to these films. Like I said, bringing the whole idea of tournament-like matching, when these guys are paired up in groups and stuff like that, instead of just a band of dudes fighting each other and stuff like that. No, he breaks it up and gives people specialties. Like in this film, you got the yoga guy, okay, who's on his hands, you know, doing the handstand kung fu. Then you got the Tibetan monks who had their specialty. And then you have you have the Japanese fighters and the judo expert. There's a judo guy in here. So it's like all of these guys had their own specific skills. And Jimmy recognized that, and he thought that this was a new way to present action to the audiences of these films, and it worked. It worked to nearly perfection.
Don't throw that out. I can sell it. It has an unstable gray hole inside.
Go on, unstable gray hole.
What he was doing.
Someone's going to prison.
Sorry about that, people. So there was a lot to be said about what was going on in these films at the time. So yeah. We got Chi-Town's Finest is saying very true. And he's laughing. Yeah, Chi-Town's Finest, you're talking about those films that I talked about how the Mandarin languages and Cantonese languages, how they're more flowery than, the English language. Yeah, they speak with like a regalness, in their own way. So, these films are presented like that, and they're a lot of fun, especially when they're translated to English from that era, because the dubbing artists who dubbed these films were usually a crew of 10 or less who did most of the films at that time. So you'll recognize voices, in several different movies. It's that one voice you say, oh, that's the dude that voiced Bruce Lee, or that's the dude that voiced Jimmy Wang Yu, or whatever. And, it made you comfortable and settle in. And after a while, you didn't even think about it that much anymore. It's like, okay, you recognize that voice. There you go, So, yeah. But there's a number of things that take place in this film that really make it a landmark. And even on this theatrical poster that I have behind me, screen on one poster, and on the other poster just across, it's telling you, make way for the Chinese professionals, the Kung Fu beasts, the karate killers, the Siamese devils, the Tibetan tiger men, the bloody Kwando master, the judo king, the invincible yoga Khan, the fantastic one-armed boxer. See, all of that stuff, and when they had these theatrical posters, you standing outside the movie theater and you looking at these posters, you was like, man, I gotta go see this. Back in the 70s, because it was like they didn't have nothing like that back then. That's the equivalent of the Avengers, man. Basically, right there, all those dudes coming in your popcorn like, oh, look at this dude. He flying, he stuck his fingers through dude's chest. Oh my God, he just sitting there eating this stuff. I cannot express clearly enough how much these films meant for their first go around. Now, if you're a Bruce Lee fan, and I'm a huge Bruce Lee fan, I really am, these films were not Bruce Lee movies. Bruce couldn't even appear in these kind of films because he thought that this stuff was crazy. But you know what? Audiences ate this stuff up, man. They loved it. And the thing about it was, variety is the spice of life. You have to have something more than just the lone gunman gunning down, the enemy or whatever. You got to have something to really show the audiences and make people feel good about what they're seeing and have a feeling about it. That's what these films did. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Walter Wilder says, Jimmy and Shintaro Kasu made the Zatoichi meet one-armed swordsman. Word had it that they could not stand each other. Maybe it was because Jimmy was killing evil invading Japanese. Chi-Town Finest says, yep, exactly, Stormy. Yes, sir, man. Great stuff, man. Great stuff. And Walter Wilder, I know you out there, you liking to show your prowess and proclivity to knowing about some of these films and stars and actors and everything. That's great, man. It's not a contest. This is a love fest. Okay, those who love these films, you know, being able to talk about them and share and recommend them to a new audience that maybe not had it, or to welcome in an old audience that remembers them fondly. That's what this is about. You know what I mean? So, you know, if you have, you know, recommendations and things like that, I ain't mad at you. If you want to put titles in the chat that people should see, man, I ain't mad. You do it, because it's promoting this. This is culture, okay? And culture should be received. It should be embraced. It should be respected and acknowledged. You know what I mean? Walter Wilder says the 70s movie posters are a lost art form. Yeah, I have a buddy, Kung Fu Bob O'Brien, who's out of Philly. That brother does a lot of the poster art for a lot of movies and DVDs and Blu-rays now, and he does reproduction posters. Bob O'Brien's artwork is stellar, and these are the type of things he could do. He could do it photographic, or he could do it artsy, like the poster that's immediately behind me. So yeah, I used to love those old movie posters from the 70s, because it's like the artist that would have put them together, it captures a moment in time and culture. Whereas it's just a photograph or a clip of an actor or something that could be superimposed or whatever. But like this artwork behind me, immediately behind me, that's an awesome poster, man. That's an awesome poster. You know what I mean? So yeah, absolutely wonderful stuff, man. Wonderful stuff. Walter Wilder says, Brother Storm, you have given me knowledge, my friend. Hey, man, listen, I don't profess to know it all. I profess to share what I know and what I've experienced, because I love these films from the time I was like 6, 7 years old, man. And have a lot of them stayed with me. A lot of them I've been able to acquire and put into a collection. And it's amazing. You know, when you talk about us being on lockdown and safe sheltering and quarantine and stuff like that, guess what Stormy be doing? Watching these Kung Fu films, man. Not just Kung Fu films. I love movies overall. But I'm going to say this. It's like, to be able to enjoy this as a, you know, a hobby or something, it's outstanding, man. And I appreciate the people that come in here to listen to me talk about them, because you could be doing something else with your time. But this is amazing stuff to me, man. And like I said, the one-armed boxer, it kind of brought a shift in the dynamics of what could be a story for a Kung Fu film, because after this movie came films like The Four Invincibles or the Crippled Masters, and what was it? There was another film that was made with some actual handicapped martial artists. The title escapes me right now because I've got so many things going through my mind. But definitely fighters, Kung Fu martial artists who had deficiencies or had incapacitated approaches to what they were doing, and being able to be stars out of all of this. There was a film called Kung Fu versus Yoga, where they had this yoga guy who could twist his body in all these different positions and stuff like that, and they had him in choreographed martial arts scenes in the film. The guy really didn't know kung fu, but it was like, because he could contort his body and do certain things with choreography, he could handle it easily. And that film came out. It was one of the weirdest martial art films of all time. Kung Fu versus Yoga. Check that one out. It's out there somewhere. But these are the films that Jimmy Wong Yu, with his vision, was able to bring, forward. And the One-Armed Swordsman film was one, directed by Chang Che, but also starring Jimmy Wong Yu as the One-Armed Swordsman. Then you had the Return of the One-Armed Swordsman. Then Jimmy eventually, after he left the Shaws, he came up with the One-Armed Boxer. I mean, the Chinese Boxer, which was a play on those other films, and then eventually the One-Armed Boxer. So it's like all of these films mean something, and there's a place for them in everybody's genre if you like them. The tournament films were born of this, guys who had different styles. Then you begin to see films that featured styles: the mantis, the tiger, the dragon fist, the leopard, the panther, you know what I mean, the snake, those films and the styles came out of all of this. The Thai boxers became, popular out of this. Then the ninja films, all of those films came pioneered, looking in a different direction. Not just doing sword films, doing martial arts, real kung fu, and then the different styles of kung fu, the different cultures, the Japanese culture, the Korean culture, the Indonesian culture, the Thai culture. All of that you can attribute to Jimmy Wong Yu, because that man was doing his thing back then. He was doing it. Do you know, like the Street Fighter games, the video games, Mortal Kombat games, and all those tournament games, all of that stuff came born of what Jimmy Wong Yu was introducing. There was something else that he put into these films, like his choice in music. He was using various strange sounds and, weird heavy metal type music before it was heavy metal. And it's like, he was very innovative, and I respect the man a great deal. Like I said, as I was putting this show together, I began to really think about what Jimmy was bringing, okay? And I think the first Kung Fu film focus I did was his movie The Man from Hong Kong or something like that. But I'm surprised I didn't do this film first, but it just goes to show what he was able to bring to the genre. It's a shame that he and Bruce Lee never worked together. I know there was not enough space for testosterone in the studios for those two guys. They didn't really get along. They didn't like or care for one another. But it would have been amazing to see them put something together and put it on film, because years later, after Bruce Lee died, or just a couple of years after he died, if Jimmy Wong Yu did a film called Four Real Friends, and the guys that he selected to be in that film with him were Chen Sing, Chang Yi, and Kam Kong, who were all, famous martial art film stars at that time, along with himself. And they called it Four Real Friends, or Dragon Squad. That's a film that I would like to cover in the future. These are the kind of films, like I said, they have so much. And if you think you're seeing something new on Western screens, and when something comes out, man, if you know your Kung Fu film genre, America has borrowed so much from these people who were many years ahead of what America had to offer as far as action fare. These people were very innovative. They were doing wire work and trampoline work way before anybody else thought about it. And it just became an amazing thing. What is one of the most noted things that people mention from martial art films now, the Venoms, the 5 Venoms. They are something else, the 5 Venoms. But it's like, dude, before the 5 Venoms, they were like late, they were preteen and mid-teens when Jimmy Wong Yu was doing his thing. Huh? They learned from him. So, yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge this, man, as being one of the great films of the genre. The Chinese Professionals, aka the One-Armed Boxer, Part 1, because the Part 2 became Master of the Flying Guillotine, which we'll cover at another time. If you can find one of these films, man, that I review, just take a moment and sit down and watch it at your leisure, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Allow yourself to have some fun. These films were never going to win an Academy Award, but they were bound to entertain and fill an afternoon or evening. I'm telling you. You know? Walter Wilder says, yep, he is incredibly talented. It's in our DNA being 70s kids. The Black Banter says, appreciates the martial art movie reviews. Thank you, Black Banter. I try to do my best. I try to keep it light. I don't try to go too heavy on anything, and just show the pleasure that I've had and the experiences, share the experiences that I've had viewing these films time and again over the years. Chi-Town's Finest says, a shame indeed. And the Black Banner says, did you ever review Godfathers of Hong Kong? No, I haven't, but that is a film that I would like to get around to because it's part of the genre. I have it in my collection. And believe me when I tell you this, there's not too many that I don't know about, not too many at all. And that there are so many, just because I haven't mentioned one doesn't mean it's not on the radar or it's not on the horizon, because I can only do so much at one time. And, you know, between this and regular life and everything, you know, but I put something up for you tomorrow for you guys. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central, I'm going to do Shaolin Invincible Sticks. There's already a reminder out there for it. So that's what Stormy going to do for tomorrow. You know, Shaolin Invincible Sticks with Dong Wang Tao. So, hey, man, this is what it is. But I appreciate everybody that has come out to me this evening and listened to me talk about one of these martial classics, man. I'm going to tell you something, people. I love these films, man. I love them. You know what I mean? And they're very entertaining. You know, you can find yourself enjoying these movies. It's just good stuff, man. It's just good stuff. You know? So, just know that, you know, Stormy want to do the best that he can. Yeah. Just want to do my best. But yeah. I appreciate you guys, though, you know, coming out here. And the Black Banner says, Borrow America stole so many ideas. Yes, they have, man. Yes, they have. Walter Wilder says, you are doing great, Brother Storm. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. You guys just keep coming, man, and I'll keep trying to deliver for you. You know what I mean? That's what I'll do, man. So, but yeah, that's all I got for you this evening. Thanks for stopping in, checking me out. And don't forget to tune in tomorrow for Shaolin Invincible Sticks. And we'll keep this thing going, man. I might start doing more of these and less of the boxing, because it ain't much happening in boxing that I'm enjoying right now. Appreciate everybody. Shout out to all you brothers out there listening to me, man. And thank you for stopping by. Chi-Town's Finest says, outstanding, Stormy. Thank you, man. Thank you. He says, me too. We grew up on it. Yep. Great stuff, man. Great stuff, man. So, you guys take it easy.